Today, I wanted to talk about the dynamic relationships you're going to have as the chief engineer between your executive committee, department heads, and then your immediate staff. And kind of the pros and cons of putting too much emphasis on one over the other. This is something that I've struggled with throughout my career, and had I known about this earlier on, I absolutely would have been able to navigate this minefield a little bit easier, and it would have put me at a definite advantage. So, to begin, if you have a very strong relationship with your executive committee, and by executive committee I mean your boss and perhaps his or her peers. Now, the advantage of that is obviously they hold the key to your success throughout that company. You want to make sure that you're making them happy and that you do have a strong relationship, because at the end of the day, like it or not, people do business with those that they like, and the same can be said for employees and bosses. People who have strong relationships and feel that kind of kindred spirit, they definitely, like it or not, they kind of play that favoritism. There is that nepotism involved. And having a strong relationship can really help you out in a lot of different ways, whether that's being lenient on certain things or just understanding your personality. So there is that. But caution, if you do develop a very strong relationship with your executive committee and you let that of your team suffer, you're not going to have a lot of buy-in from them. I've worked with some people in the past that all but forgot about their immediate team and did nothing but focus on the executive committee relationship. And what that did was really caused the team to believe that that person wasn't in it for them. They didn't have their best interest in mind. They didn't have a relationship with them. So they really didn't have any buy-in, and it made it a challenge. Anytime this person would come asking the team to perform under pressure, tight deadlines, they really didn't get the response they wanted because they didn't have that relationship. And at the end of the day, relationships are all we have. I mean, we're going to be spending the majority of our time with these people that we work with, and you want to make sure that relationship is good and that there is that reciprocity. Now, to kind of play that role to the opposite side, if you do have a closer relationship with your staff rather than your executive committee, there's a couple things that can suffer as well. Now, the pros of having a very strong relationship with your immediate team are they're going to have a lot of loyalty to you. They're going to feel that kindred spirit. They're going to feel that camaraderie, and they're going to move mountains for you. And that is absolutely one of the best feelings you can have, to know that every single person on that team has your back. They support you. They're there for you, thick and thin. You know how to read them very well. So there is that. But letting your relationship with the executive committee suffer can also hold back your career, because now you don't see them often, you don't interact with them, and it's something that personalization has kind of gone, and you've somewhat assimilated to your team, and you've created a silo. Now, creating silos, if you've read anything about management books, that's something that you absolutely want to avoid at all costs, because you don't want to be the island of trust in the sea of distrust, where your own department, your own world, and you're operating under your own rules. You're viewed somewhat as a rogue, and you lose that touch with your boss and your executive committee. So it can be a real challenge. Now, the department head element also adds another dynamic to it, because being very close with different department heads is, again, very critical, because they will offer you support, they can offer you resources, they can also provide kind of a sounding board for you, and they will be there to back you up on certain things. So it's great to have other leaders that are supportive of you, whether it's in management meetings, whether it's in staffing, projects, so on and so forth. So how do you balance all three of them? It can be a real challenge. One thing you have to remember is that what's fair is not always equal, and that can be true for your time. So ensuring that the time you are spending with people is quality, it's not ad hoc, it's very planned, it's purposeful, is going to be the key to this. So just like you have set up one-on-ones with your team to ensure that they know that you're there for them, you have their support, I hope that you have the same type of system set up with your executive committee and your department heads. You need to come up with a set schedule that you can meet consistently, and again, what's fair is not always equal, so certain things might require more time or might get more time just because that's the fair thing to do. Make sure you abide by that. But absolutely navigate your relationships very carefully, because again, you don't want to have the scales be so unbalanced that it causes issues in other aspects of your job. The best thing that I've done in the past, from making these mistakes of having the imbalanced relationships on both sides of the spectrum, I had it where I really didn't have relationships with the executive committee, and I can tell you that it absolutely was painful. I was somewhat of, it felt like you're somewhat of an outsider, and you're only there to serve a purpose, and you're somewhat of a workhorse and nothing more. And it's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling to sit there and realize that you're an outsider. But knowing that I had the support of my team at that time, it meant the world to me. I've also been on the other side of the coin, where I had an amazing relationship with the executive committee, and I let my relationship with the team suffer. And when it came time to asking for certain things, I knew I didn't have that relationship with them to where I was able to go out and ask for it. And it was sort of embarrassing, because here I was trying to ask them to do things that I absolutely would do myself, but I just didn't have that bond with them, and it hurt. So making sure you balance it is critical, and setting up that schedule to where you meet with every person and you develop those strong relationships and devote a specific amount of time to each one of them, and meeting with them regularly. I mean, you have to meet with your team regularly, and your team includes your executive committee, your department heads, and then your immediate staff. And sharing that time with them and building those relationships is going to be key to your success.